Welcome to A Second Helping with Allison Bartow, a wedding photography podcast with a focus on second shooting. Welcome back to the podcast. On this week's episode, I'm having a conversation with Skyler Fiel, a fellow Westchester, Pennsylvania-based photographer who got into wedding photography last year, and he set a really lofty goal for himself at the end of January, and he hit it. So I wanted to chat with him more about that goal and how he went about it, what he learned from it. And along the way, we also talk about, Uncrustables, whether MagMod is overhyped, and his current lens that he's obsessed with. So my thank you to Skyler, and I'm just going to jump in because I never do a good introduction when I'm interviewing a guest. Again, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So obviously, we worked together last year, and that was in like May or June. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't believe the other day when I saw your post on Instagram, and I just want to read it because I was blown away by all of it. So on January 27th, 2023, I set myself the ambitious goal of booking 52 photography-related jobs, one for each week of the year. I had zero prior professional experience. On December 22nd, 2023, I completed my 52nd photography job. This is my year. So, I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
So, and I know we chatted a little bit last year, but how did you get into, photography? And or how did you decide to start pursuing wedding photography?
Yeah, I mean, so like I've been shooting for I'm approaching probably 14 years now. So like, I know my way around a camera. I've always loved doing it. I've just never had that self-confidence that like someone might pay me to actually shoot things. So, early this year, just doing the day grind or the day job grind, it puts you in a rut and kind of in a bad mental state. And I'd had enough and was like, I want to maybe try to pursue this and hope I can maybe get somewhere. I had some encouragement from some coworkers that do it, part-time. So they were really pushing me on. And I kind of took that leap and I said, okay, I'm just going to start accepting every possible job that I can get my hands on and fill my calendar as much as I possibly can and hope that, something might eventually come from it. And here we are now with 52 jobs of some sort photography related, whether it's, assisting or second or lead or, just stuff for friends and family. But if it was a paying job, I included it in that number there because to me, that's professional photography is getting paid to shoot photos.
Absolutely. And I did the math on that. It's 330 days from start to finish in that time period.
Yeah, I know.
Made that.
I was like goal. 3 weeks behind, and I'm like, if I had one for every week, then to me, like that is a sign that I could pursue a career in it because that's pretty steady workflow in my opinion. Obviously the bulk of that was during peak wedding season. So, those were 3 days, but that's kind of the nature of the business. So I looked at it as a total year span as opposed to, that shorter time frame.
Yeah. But it's incredible. It's averaging one paid gig every 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the goal.
Yeah. Now, when you made this goal, when you set this goal for yourself, how did you start pursuing paid gigs?
So I started using that ShootWithMe website. Mm-hmm. It's been super great for getting people to just find me. I started on there, set, the lowest rate I could comfortably set and put in a decent bio and hope for the best. I had posted on, there's a private Facebook group that I'm a part of. I was invited in by one of the wives of that coworker that I was talking about. She uses that and she regularly shoots. And she had recommended, just post something in there. Someone might hire you, kind of go from there. I did exactly that. Luckily, Nathan Desch was the first person that booked me. He, created the ShootWithMe site. So he kind of took a shot on me, had me out for one assisting gig. And from then I was just hooked. And luckily he left me a great review and it just snowballed from there, people picking me up.
Yeah. And I think that Shoot With Me is a great resource, and people, you got to get the ball rolling. So it's good to get that first job under your belt, and then you get some reviews. And have you found that you've booked photographers through there, like they've hired you and then you continue working with them, like they reach out to you repeatedly then?
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt. And most of the time they, repeat through that system itself. There's probably 3 or 4 people, I think, that hired me this year, like that took up, I would say 75% of the jobs that I was booked for, because, they found me on a whim one day and happened to like working with me, and then just rehired me from there. And we just kept going together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming then that you enjoyed working with them.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're great people, all of them.
So did you have any experiences through whatever means that you booked the gig, any troubling times, any rough gigs?
Oh, of course. There was one studio that hired me that I can confidently say I don't think I'll ever work for again. I've heard that they're great people. It was just one of those things where, we meet up. I've never met this guy before, working for his team. I know he's on a higher end paying spectrum. As far as like what he charges his clients is pretty astronomical compared to a lot of people. But we meet up in a parking lot the day of the wedding, and no, hi, nice to meet you. How are you doing? He handed me his bags and we just started walking, and I'm like, that's cool. All right. Driving into Philly, no one likes it. So maybe it was just a rough time. And, it went from there, just continually getting worse. They had gotten into an argument with the hairdresser because they were like running short on time, but we were running short on time because the second had forgot her flash and was borrowing the first flash, which, like, I understand happens, but that's not the hairdresser's fault. So why are we yelling at her? And, then the bride is apologizing to the hairdresser for us. And I don't want to be associated with those, that doesn't look good for anyone. And, they were talking down about the bride, like the next room over continually, and just an unpleasant experience from start to finish. And I don't need to work for them, so I will definitely not be working for them again. But besides that, everyone else I've worked for, they've all been wonderful and great.
That's pretty good statistics then. And
oh yeah,
I found that's another thing that I love about second shooting, because you get to work with so many different photographers and studios, and you see a little bit behind the scenes, whether it's how they set out their timelines or how they communicate up to the wedding, how they communicate on the wedding day, just kind of how they handle their business. And I think as a second or an assistant, you get so much insight. Whereas once a photographer is just working and doing their own jobs, they're not really seeing too many other photographers and how they're doing it. So that's something I really enjoy.
Oh yeah, for sure. And, all the nitty gritty aside, even just shooting styles alone, it's fascinating seeing how people work and the setups. Another thing with that guy that I will never work with, most people, I would say the majority of people I work with, it's always like an 8200 and, a softbox and a monopod or something of that nature. And of course he has, the 8600. So I have the backpack with the battery all day long, lugging it through Philly day in, day out. And I'm like, your shots don't look any different than anyone else's. And you're just using the most expensive gear because you feel like you can, I guess. So that was it was interesting to see. Again, you're getting the same results with significantly more cumbersome stuff, and there's no need for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the communication is really interesting. How many people, some people it's a month out, I'm getting a timeline. Other people it's the day of, like, hey, just meet me here at this time. And, you take whatever I can here, but I definitely prefer having the longer timeline on that. Yeah, it is fascinating for sure.
Yeah. And it's just the way that they run their business that they almost don't realize, because I see the same thing. I have some photographers that I work with that are almost anxious, and they're, going over everything, and they're sending things out ahead of time, and they're, very detail oriented. And then other people that are so loosey goosey, like you said, it's the night before or the day of that they're sending something out, and they're just laid back about it. And it's just so interesting to see how different. And then with the styles of shooting too, what have you experienced with regards to the approach? Like, how much is someone posing? How much are you running into people that are photojournalistic or in between? And just kind of, what's your experience with that been?
I'd say, like, specifically assisting, the bulk majority has been pretty similar styles of just an off-camera flash. Like I said, it's always a softbox with a monopod of sorts, and I'm usually off to the angle, lighting them up. That's the majority of it. It's usually superposed. It's kind of the same thing every time for the most part. I have done a second now where it was more photojournalistic, and personally, that's my style. I think I like those images way better. So I was excited to go and second for that person and learned so much. And that style it's very different. It's way more run and gun, and you're kind of hoping for a lot of things because nothing is posed. You're hoping everything's going correctly and it's going to work out. But I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it more. I like being that fly on the wall as opposed to interrupting moments, because I've seen people that they get tired of taking those photos because it is, portraits are an hour long sometimes. They just want to get done with it. So, you kind of feel bad ruining their day a little bit there. So it's been fascinating. I'd never done any off-camera stuff prior to starting this. So seeing how that's achieved has definitely been beneficial, I think, if I ever wanted to pursue more of that, or possibly even like try to blend that a little bit with the documentary style. But the majority of people have just been that heavy off-camera flash look. So it's been interesting.
So that is really interesting to me too. It's like brought something up. When you're assisting, is there often a second photographer? Or is it mostly you assisting the lead?
The majority usually have a second. I've done some where it's just me and a lead. There's usually smaller events, but the majority there's a second, a first, and then I'm assisting the first.
I do a lot of second shooting, and I don't run into assistants as much. So it got me thinking maybe you're going to see, when there's an assistant, more of the posed photos, whereas when it's a lead and a second, it's a little bit more of the middle ground.
Sure.
Because I would say a lot of the photographers I work with, they don't do a ton of posing outside of the official portrait time. I love the more photojournalistic approach, but I find right now it's probably harder just because I don't have that experience to appeal to that client base. You don't want to surprise someone on the wedding day and be like, oh no, I don't pose anybody for anything.
No, I know. And again, a lot of it is hoping. You're hoping everything works out. So it's a risk to take to kind of go towards that style and that aspect. But that kind of makes it fun, in my opinion. It's
definitely something I think the bride and groom, the couple, has to want.
Sure. For sure.
Into, because I know personally, I don't love when the couple is having like a nice moment, or say the bride and her mom are having a nice moment and the photographer interrupts and is like, oh, hey, do that again. Or, oh, mom, come over here. And because I find on wedding days, there aren't that many true emotional moments. There's just so much going on that there are these just tiny glimpses where people are having that connection. And when you see someone just cutting it off, I'm always like, no.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, so of your gigs, what geographic area were you in? Everywhere?
Mostly Pennsylvania. I did one or two in like northern Jersey, and a couple in like northern Delaware. There was 20% I'd probably say were in Philly, which, I'm contemplating a no Philly rule for next year because I just really don't like Philly. A lot out, I'm like in the Westchester area, so a lot of stuff out this way, a lot of stuff Chester Springs area, and, Kennett Square has some really nice venues, stuff like that. So mostly in the Pennsylvania region.
Okay. I haven't done too much shooting in Kennett Square, but I like that area. What are some venues out there that you enjoy?
I've done a couple at like Mendenhall, which is like Kennett Square, Chadds Ford area. I'm trying to think of what other ones have been out there. They all start to blend together after a while. So it's like, it's hard to remember which ones are which. And they all have like the same three names of Stone, Barn, Farm, something.
I found one of the things that I enjoy about second shooting is you do get that variety. So it's like one weekend you're in Philly and the next weekend you're out in like Lancaster County. And so you get that exposure to a lot. Whereas I think when someone's just a full-time lead photographer, they start to book a lot of the same places
Sure,
because
yeah.
they're doing well and they're getting those referrals. So you see, like I work with one photographer who's just, almost always in the city and one photographer who's always out in Lancaster. So it's nice to kind of have that mix.
Yeah.
So I know Philly's not the best, but I do enjoy some of those venues. I don't love getting there or getting back.
The venues are great. I mean, some of my favorite places I've been were in Philly. It is cool once you're there, but getting there is such a pain, and parking is always such a pain. And especially specifically for assisting, where obviously you're not making as much as you would be for seconding. Like by the time you factor in parking and tolls and everything, it's not, your margins aren't as great as you'd like them to be. So that plays into it a little bit as well. I don't mind shooting in there, but assisting it's getting a little tough.
I can see that. Yeah. And I find too, the challenge for the city is you have to really think ahead about what gear you need versus when you're someplace else where you can leave things in the car and run and grab something else or make multiple trips. So I feel that really affects what you're going to prepare and how you're going to approach the day sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean,
like
especially
in the
as
city, go ahead.
Especially as an assistant when, I'm usually the one carrying the bags and everything. So in Philly, those are certainly longer days that the feet are a little bit more tired that day than any other venue.
Yeah. And all right. So some of the photographers I work with will reimburse parking or tolls. And then I've worked with some that are like, oh no, I won't pay for that. What has your take been? Do you get reimbursed for things like, because I'm thinking about, people that are getting into this business and are pursuing assisting, what to expect?
It's hit or miss. I haven't had anyone that would I think would overtly oppose it. I'm someone that I don't like confrontation, so I normally just avoid the subject and just, I'll eat the $10. It is what it is, in my opinion. I'm not gonna, fight over it. I've had great people that, just send it to me regardless without even asking, which is, awesome. And I appreciate that a lot. But I haven't had anyone specifically say, no, that's your problem, not mine, or anything like that. Luckily.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting started, what's some other advice that you have for people that are looking to get into, say, specifically wedding photography and they want to assist? What's some additional advice? So say someone's just starting to get their first gigs. What would you advise them of?
I would advise them to be as reliable as humanly possible. That's probably the number one compliment I've received from everyone I've worked with is that I'm reliable. And if you book me, whether it's a week out or 6 months out, I will definitely be there no matter what. I have luckily not had to cancel a single gig yet. I understand unforeseen things happen, but be there early if you can, stay late if you need to, and be there when they need you to be there, because apparently a lot of people are struggling to find reliable assistants and reliable seconds, because I don't know. I can't fathom a reason as to why I wouldn't show up for a job, but apparently it's pretty common. So just make sure that you show up and you do everything, ask questions if you have them. Haven't had anyone that is annoyed by questions. They want to be as helpful as possible, and you want to help them do their job as best as you can. So, just be there and do as great of a job as you can. And I think you'll get a lot of success that way.
Yeah. I know one photographer that I work with, she shared an experience where she hired someone, I think it was to second shoot, and they were talented and they scheduled out a bunch of weddings with her. Maybe it was like 6. And so they shot 2 weddings. And after the second one, they said, you know what? I learned everything I need to learn, so I'm not going to do those other weddings that I have booked. And she was like, oh my gosh, she spent all this time investing in, training someone, expecting that person was going to be there for like half a dozen weddings. And so she said she'll never work with that person again.
Yeah.
And
it ruins the relationship. And you're going to get a slow year where you're going to need those extra jobs, and they could be the one that provide them to you. So you're going to burn that bridge. So I would just be there. Just, I understand even if a nicer offer comes your way, it's definitely more important to keep the relationships with your coworkers and be there when you're expected to be there.
Yeah. And I think the communication goes a long way. And I think getting started in this business, it's tough because people don't know what they don't know until they run into a situation. So one of the photographers that I shoot with, we've been working together for a while, and he did say to me, just so you know, if you're on the calendar with me and you get an opportunity to shoot your own wedding, I'm totally fine with you taking that. And I really appreciated that, because I wouldn't ask someone, to be like, oh, hey, can I get out of this? So I just like that he offered that. But, it's partially because we've been working together for a while, and, I am reliable and I've committed to those dates, and I've never been like, hey, I don't feel like coming anymore. Yeah. Any other advice regarding, clothing, footwear, snacks, water, anything like that?
Ooh, yes.
Any lessons learned?
I know this might get some hate, but Uncrustables are the greatest, midday wedding meal ever. I bring a whole box with me every day, every time I go, to a wedding, just because you never know if you're going to get to eat or what you're going to eat half the time. So can't go wrong with an Uncrustable. I recommend compression socks. I've got extremely fat feet, so my ankles are killing me. So compression socks go a long way, along with I have insoles in my shoes. I know Cole Haan makes dress shoes that kind of have a more sneaker type sole. Those are great. They look great, and they, feel more comfortable, and they're lighter than, your typical dress shoe. Apple Watches are great. I've had a lot of leads that will text me reminders, notes like, hey, let me know, when we get to this point, can you just remind me? That's been great to have, stuff like that. Besides that, don't show up in wrinkled clothing is always a good start too. Mm-hmm. You're going to a wedding, so dress like you're going for a wedding. I usually go all black. I've been trying to switch that up just because you do get confused for the wait staff occasionally. But dark clothing is always great. And again, just be there on time.
Yeah. What have you, because now you're engaged, right?
Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful fiance.
Thank you.
What have you learned then about weddings, having now been to so many weddings this past year?
Oh, yeah. So my wedding, we were planning on doing an actual wedding. We are now eloping. So if that means anything, weddings are great. They're a lot. Some things I would never invite kids to a wedding. No matter how much they want to be there, it just throws quite the wrench in the system. A wedding coordinator is the most valuable thing you can hire if you are doing a wedding. For me personally, my important things were a photographer and a DJ, because the photographer is going to remember your day and the DJ is going to make it a fun day. So that's where I would put the majority of my budget. People don't necessarily care what venue you're going to, they're just there to have a good time. So let them have a good time is kind of how I would look at it. But I definitely learned that there is no such thing as a normal wedding. Every wedding I've been to has been something crazy has happened. No, it never fails. I think I had one this past year where I was like, all right, that was a pretty smooth sailing, easy day. We were on time. Everything was great. But that's one out of, again, 50 some odd jobs that it's never normal.
No, I totally agree with you. What were some of the crazy things you saw?
Oh man. Let's see. I had a couple wardrobe malfunctions. That was in front of everyone. That was interesting. Not me personally, but the bride. That was entertaining. I had a bride begin interpretive dancing, which was unexpected. A lot of very drunk people. I've had a bridezilla that the first words that I ever heard come out of her mouth were, "I hate this. I hate all of this. This isn't what I wanted." And
that's at the beginning of the day.
That was the very first thing that came out of her mouth. And I'm like, okay, cool. So this is going to be one of those kind of days. Awesome. Trying to think of what else. I've had videographers that elbow you out of the way and try to take over everything, which is never a fun time. A lot of really bad DJs, really bad DJs. It's always something. I had a grandma try to get me to dance with her, but I'm working here, so it never ends. Every wedding, something crazy always happens.
Yeah, it's just a roller coaster of emotions, and then you start adding alcohol into the mix too.
Oh, for sure.
You just never know.
No.
I feel like in the beginning of the day, it's just so heightened, And I've learned that I don't take anything personally. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes in the days, the weeks and months leading up to the wedding. And then who knows what happens at the rehearsal dinner the night before. But it's like, you just have a lot of relatives sometimes that, are bent out of shape about something, they didn't get to add everyone they wanted to the list, or, just hurt feelings about dresses. And, there's just, it seems like a lot of times you just have someone who's not happy about something, and, you just kind of, I've found, separate yourself from it and do your job, because it really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's entertaining. I can definitely say that they are extremely entertaining. I would have thought after this many, I'd be bored and it'd be the same thing. This, like, it's a wedding. They usually go more or less the same idea of they're getting ready, they go to their ceremony, it's a reception, everyone dances and goes home. Like, that would think that's the bulk majority of them, and it's not. There's always some sort of wrench or crazy thing thrown in there that you're not expecting, and it does make it fun and entertaining.
Yeah. It does, because it's like always just something that you're like, oh, first time for this. And it's amazing because, like you said, it's like the same sequence of events. They get ready, they get dressed, they get married, they have cocktail hour, they have receptions, and yet somehow it's just always different things popping up. We had a wedding. I was with Dave, and right when we got to prep, the bride's sister was like, oh, hey, come here. And so she pulled me outside of the hotel room. She goes, nobody knows this, like nobody. But I hired the mummers for later, and they're coming. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I told Dave, and it's like, I mean, we can't do anything with that. But I mean, it's just so intrusive. And that was at the Crystal Tea Room. So it's like someone has planned out, this whole event and this timeline. And then, to just kind of impose like that. It's wild, like what some people do. And it's, whether it's for attention for themselves or what, but yeah, you just take the pictures.
Exactly.
So from a gear standpoint, when you're second shooting or lead shooting, what gear are you using? What ecosystem are you working in? And, what lenses are you liking?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm using Sony currently. I have been shooting with them since they put out their very first little mirrorless of the NAX5 way back in, 2011 or whatever. So I've never left. I've contemplated many times, but still here. Normally one camera I have an A7R3 or what I use. Normally I'll have a 24-70 on one camera. I recently got a 135 1.8 that I've been loving so much. I'm a sucker for long lenses, so that's kind of my two go-tos at the moment. I have an 85 as well if the 135 is just pushing it too much, but that's been my main go-to currently. And then I use like the whole Godox ecosystem for flashes. I recently got like a V1 that I use for a lot of stuff, a couple of AD200s. I have not delved into the MagBox system yet. I know that's very common for a lot of people, but I'm not super impressed currently.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to say once you start, you just buy one thing after another. But all right, so what are you not super impressed with?
I've heard some quality issues from some people, which is concerning. And I think they're, pretty expensive for what you're getting. So
it's magnets.
Yeah, exactly. So, I understand they are convenient. It is pretty, easy to use for sure. I haven't made that jump yet, and I'm trying to avoid it as long as I can, but I know that is, kind of what the majority of people are using. But that's mostly it.
I laugh because I ended up buying all the stuff. I've got all the MacBook stuff.
A lot of people really love them. I've heard of a couple people are like, oh no, I don't love them. And it's been interesting because I'm like, oh, okay. I thought like it was almost a requirement to have, and seeing some people create great photos without them has been, a good sign for me. So
no, I think you have to have Uncrustables and MagMod to do this business.
That's like, that's the starter kit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's slowly trying to get some more gear here and there. Just it's been interesting doing so much with off-camera flash people that, after finally getting someone that does more documentary style, seeing how much less gear I kind of need. So again, I'm evaluating a lot of things currently. But yeah, that's the bulk majority of my setup.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's again wild when you work with different photographers. Some that are like super flash heavy, that really love like a posed portrait. That's a ton of gear. And then I work with other people and it's like they've got literally just a backpack. And I'm like, oh my God, and I've got all my nonsense. So it's really interesting to see. And they do it. They're professional photographers that do a good job. And, I will have 7 or 8 lenses with me. And then there's some people that have 2 or 3 and they get the job done. I'm curious about the 135. Are you using that during prep or that's tight. That's long for prep. So or are you using it all the time? You're in love.
I'm in love. If, like I said, if I can't stand back far enough, then I have my 24-70, which covers, I would say, almost everything. It's old reliable, but I don't know. There's just something about the compression, and I'm a sucker for like details and close-ups and kind of stuff like that. So like, I don't need to get the whole room. It doesn't matter what, most of the people are in a hotel room. The hotel rooms, for the most part, all look the same. So as opposed to trying to make the hotel room different, I'd kind of look at it as make the shot look different, in my opinion. So I've been approaching it that way. I'll still get the same shots with the 24-70 just because I can. But like this past like documentary style wedding that I did, I at one point put my second camera down and just the last like 3-4 hours of the night, I'm like, I'm fine with the 135. I'll make space however I need to. And that's what I was using. I love it. I don't know. It works.
I like that. And I think it is nice when you're just towards the end of the day then and I'm not good about this, but to put one body down and just shoot with one camera. And I think the fewer distractions, the better. So that's bold, the 135. I gotta go back through and look at your pictures.
I'm weirdly like, I've had that 24-70 for like almost since it came out. That was my first like real nice big professional lens. And like, in my opinion, it does everything good, but it doesn't do anything great. And I've been putting off like going the prime route because it's so much more to carry and it's like a lot more cumbersome and it's more money, in the long run too. So, but like recently I've been testing out some primes and I think I could reasonably do a whole wedding with like a 135 and maybe like a 35 and that's it. I'm good to go. Like I don't, even when I have the 24-70 on, like I'm either using it close to 24 or I'm using it at 70. Like I don't find that middle range too often as something that I need. So, and to have 1.8 versus 2.8 can do a lot as far as low light situations. So I'm really leaning towards that prime stuff recently.
I hit a period there where I was really I was 35, 50, and 85, and I was loving it. But what I did find was as the second shooter, I felt like I was changing my lenses a lot. And maybe that's, something I just need to work on. But I was loving the prime. But then I did find for second shooting, having that 24-70 on, I was able to just leave one lens on that camera. And so I do like primes, but the 24-70 is nice because then I felt like I wasn't missing anything because I wasn't fiddling around with changing primes. But I'd love to do for you to do a 35. And you said 35 and 135, right? Or no, you didn't.
Yeah, no, I did.
35 and 135?
I think I would say, again, if there's a specific look or style you're going after, obviously you're going to need something wider. But, I don't know how often those are really like the make or break photos for people. So I would say, 35 for your average walking around tight space kind of stuff. And then, most portraiture work and anything I can really compress, I would go with that 135 for, and details and stuff like that, close ups.
Yeah. What do you like to do for details? Would you say this year, I guess, do you have a rough idea of what your breakdown was, like gigs assisting, second, and lead or associate?
Yeah, I would say the bulk were definitely assisting. Again, just being my first year, getting the first job that offered to me, I accepted it, no questions asked. So I would probably say like 65 to 70 were probably, like percent was probably assisting. And then I think I honestly had more lead stuff. Like than second shooting, but like I'm in that number, I'm including other jobs that weren't specifically weddings. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'd like friends and coworkers that hired me to take photos of their dogs. I had, you know, like Xfinity had reached out and had me come shoot a day at like their Christmas tinsel town that they had. So in my opinion, yeah, any sort of paying photography job, wedding or not, I included in that number. So, you know, when you look at it that way, there was more lead than there was second. I think I had like probably like 3 or 4 of those gigs were second shooting. I'm hoping to heavily increase that number this upcoming year, just because I really enjoyed second shooting. And, you know, I thought it was tons of fun. It's a great gig. It kind of lets me actually shoot, which is always a good start. A lot less stressful than being a lead. You know, I'd like to eventually be a lead, but I enjoyed second shooting a lot, and I'm hoping to do more of those next year.
Yeah, I think it's a great experience. I think it's a way to really bring value, you know, just helping the lead photographer. And then just, I feel like you're an asset as well to the couple, just, you know, kind of just helping with things. And, you know, I love second shooting. So, trying to think of was there anything that really surprised you about wedding photography once you've started going to all these weddings?
Not necessarily wedding photography specifically. I would say I was pretty surprised at how like friendly and welcoming the majority of the community is.
Okay.
You know, it's not to bring someone on, show them kind of your tricks of the trade and how you do your work. I understand is, you know, it's you're letting them in to see things that most people don't see. So it was very eye-opening how many people were more than willing to help out and, you know, offer you support and offer me a job and kind of show me how to do the job that, you know, realistically one day I could be taking a client from them, which it's not easy for people to do. So it was very eye-opening. I had people I'd, you know, reached out to prior that just straight up ghosted me, never responded to any emails or calls or anything like that. You know, people that I wanted to work with, but didn't want anyone working with them. So like I kind of had this idea going into it of like, it's a tough competitive business. Everyone's at each other's throats. We're all, you know, fighting for the same gigs here and there. And that's really not how it is at all. There's plenty of very nice, friendly people that are willing to help you out. And, you know, hopefully you'll help them out just as much. And you know, you can build great relationships with people pretty easily as long as you're, you know, a friendly person, I'd say.
I think you're 100% correct. I feel like I was saying to my husband recently, I was like, you know, this past year, I feel like I've made some really good friends from second shooting, like people that I enjoy talking with and being with. And it's interesting because you show up and you don't have very much time to get to know them or know how they operate. And so it's pressure, I think, for them to have like faith and trust in you in what you're doing without really knowing initially. And I do find that most photographers are pretty generous, you know, when they can with their knowledge and everything and providing feedback. And I have found, to your point, the community, generally speaking, to be very kind. And the other thing I realized too, when I sit back and look at like all the weddings I've been a part of, I would say the vast majority of photographers, of the wedding photographers that I've worked with, are so concerned and serious and, you know, committed to doing a great job. So that was really nice too, because you're working with someone who's really passionate. Because a lot of people you encounter in their day jobs are burnout, not happy. And I have very infrequently seen photographers or videographers that are just over it and don't want to be there and aren't happy, but it has been so few and far between. And when you look back at like how much these people care about, you know, doing a good job, it is really nice, like how serious they take it, because it's a big deal. But, you know, behind the scenes, it's nice to see that they really, really care and are concerned.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's been a nice, pleasant surprise. Were there any weird ways that you got gigs? Oh, I guess so. Tell me about the Xfinity. How did that come about?
So the previous year, there's a Instagram group called like Philly Shooters. They had done like a Philly Shooters meetup. I had never attended any of their events. I'd never spoken to anyone. It was one of those things where I'm like, well, you know, I kind of want to be in this industry, so let me break out of my comfort zone and just show up to this event and hope that they don't hate me, I guess, and kick me out. So they were doing a free Tinseltown. Pretty much you show up to Tinseltown, take some photos, and then just make sure that you tag them when you post them. And then, our entry was free. And I'm like, that's cool. I love Christmas. I'll go walk around, and if I get absolutely nothing, then I get nothing, or maybe I'll get something to post. And I'd got a couple photos that I, had pretty much liked for the day. And I posted those on Instagram at the time. I don't know if they did well or anything like that. I just posted them for fun. And then this past fall, I received a random inquiry on my website from them asking if I'd like to come just spend the day shooting photos. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I had fun last year. They had moved it to FDR Park this year. So it was a significantly nicer venue. There was, trees. It wasn't a big parking lot. So I kind of play around more. And they also, being media for the day, I had more access to, I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want. I didn't feel restricted. And they were great. They had a really small shot list. It was more like, just grab these couple of things we're requiring, but for the most part, spend as long as you want, do whatever you got to do whatever you want to do. Just, enjoy the event and grab some photos. So, it was really nice working with them. So I hope I get to work with them again this upcoming year.
That's awesome. And you should feel good because they sought you out then after seeing your photos.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, for sure. Especially, a company like Xfinity it's no joke. I was like, this is crazy. It's so cool. My first ever media badge I got, I was like, this is quite a moment for me.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love looking back at little small decisions you make and then how they then turn into other opportunities. And you're like, oh, wow, if I hadn't have done that little tiny thing back then, this wouldn't be happening right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting the different doors you can open up by being open-minded and, taking different things. And I know you said when you started, you set your pricing as low as you were comfortable with. Have you stair-stepped it up a little bit during the year, or did you wait and do a bump, or are you getting ready to do a bump in pricing?
Yeah. So, I'll be totally transparent. When I first started, I did $15 an hour for assisting. That was, I think ShootWithMe had recommended this is kind of the lowest rate that we recommend, don't sell yourself too short kind of situation. So I set it at that. And, I had gotten probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 bookings at that price rate, which felt great. I was finally booking some jobs, and then, as it progressed and you started doing those things, I kind of realized that's not a lot of money after, really a long day. Yeah, it's great. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely think, I'm worth more. I've, been showing up and meeting these people, and I had some great photographers that I worked with that were like, hey bud, raise your prices here. You're worth more than this. And I had stepped up to 20, I think at one point, and got, still getting an influx of jobs, which was great. And I think by the end of the year, I had it stepped up to 25 and was still getting, a fair amount of people that were booking me. So, for this upcoming year, I had it set a little bit higher, I believe. I don't have my availability for next wedding season set currently just because I am getting married. So I'm still not sure on my timeline as to how much free time I'll have in September and stuff like that. But when I do that, I might do slightly higher rates for next wedding season just because the market's there. There's tons of people that want to hire me. So I'm going to, whatever I'm worth and people are willing to pay, I'm going to try to get everything I can, just slowly increasing it as my schedule's booking up. It was not the greatest when late this year I had 1 or 2 jobs that were still at that 15 an hour rate. So once you've been through it, 30, 40 times at that point, you're like, oh, cool, I'm doing this for pennies. But it's again, reliability, show up and do the job. I agreed to it. I committed to it. So I'm going to be there. And that's what I did. And they were great people. I had some people that even paid me higher rates because, again, just working with wonderful people has been great.
And it's funny because I look at it too, because I've had that happen and I'm like, oh, well, you know what? When I booked this job, I was grateful for it. So
exactly.
I'm going to still be grateful for it. And I think you're definitely right at this point now. You have think how much you've learned this right now compared to where you were a year ago.
Oh, definitely. Without a doubt. Yeah.
Been to dozens of weddings.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's little things too that you pick up on it, just reminding the all the guys, hands in your pockets, like just little things like that the photographer might not forget. I think having that little extra beneficial knowledge of being at that many weddings definitely makes you a more valuable person, because it's one of those things that most people might forget. And if you save them from having that worse of a shot, I think they'll view your value as definitely higher than otherwise,
Yeah. I know second shooting with the guys and going in for prep, I always try to I just want them to be comfortable with me, and I'm not doing a lot of talking, but I don't want them to be like, ugh. So I typically at some point will say to them like, hey, just a heads up when we do actually backing up a second, I will a lot of times ask them how many guys are married. And it's really just to get an idea of like how familiar they are with a wedding. If they're all married, then I'm like, all right, they kind of get this. But sometimes I've had weddings where none of them are married. So you're like, all right, these guys don't exactly know what they're in for, because you don't know if they've been groomsmen before. So I typically try to mention at some point during prep, like, hey, when we get to the formal photos, just a heads up, you're going to hear me time and time again saying, hey guys, cell phones, cameras, keys, like everything out of your pockets. So I give them that heads up. And it's funny because then when you do get to the portraits and they're being reminded, they kind of look at you and laugh because you have already given them that heads up. And I find that if you are easy to work with for the guys, it makes a big difference, because guys aren't normally as into the photos. So
no,
like you said, just having those little insights from being at weddings and knowing kind of how you can get on their good side and make things go smoother makes a big difference. There's so many things that you see over and over again at weddings that you just don't know until you've been out there doing it. So,
yeah, exactly.
What else? I think you've got really good advice for people that want to get into wedding photography, because I know in some of the Facebook groups that I'm on, people get frustrated because they're like, how do I get into this? How do I get experience? What would you say with your social media? I didn't even look at like how many followers you have, but I do love your photography. Obviously, I've been following you for a while now. What recommendations do you have for people on posting on social media? What would you tell people to do?
I don't know if I'm the person to ask for this, just because I'm not as active as I'd like to be. I would just make sure that your content is as high quality as possible. Social media, I feel like personally is in a weird rut where if you look back, a year ago at photos that were taken that I don't personally like that much, but they would get hundreds, if not thousands of likes. And I'll post photos that I love now and they'll get 30. And that's kind of the nature of social media at this point. Unfortunately, the old algorithm is always, it's doing weird things. So I'm at a point personally where I'm like, I'm just going to post things that I love and I enjoy and almost make it more for me. If I think at the end of the day, that might garner you people that are more attracted to you and your style anyway, as opposed to trying to use it as strictly business, this, and this. If you have a business account, that's totally great as well. I know a lot of people, they'll split, they'll have a personal and a business. I just have my single personal. It is a business account, but I'm posting stuff that isn't weddings and it isn't client stuff. It's just photos that I've taken that I really personally enjoyed. And I, try to make them as high quality as possible. If they're not perfect, I just won't post them because there's no need to. No one knows that you took a not perfect photo. So I'm not going to let everyone know that I took a not perfect photo. That's about it. I mean, I know I should be posting more. Hopefully I will, now that I kind of have some free time to go do some more things that I enjoy. Now that the season's kind of over. But yeah, I mean, I know communicating with people has been great. That's a great way to get gigs, is become friends with these people, because they're always looking for people. And one conversation is all that it takes for someone to be like, oh, hey, maybe I'll hire this person this time. So-and-so just bailed. Someone said that they're always looking for gigs. Being friendly is always great. There's no need to be mean on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, just post what you like, and I think you'll get results that you want.
I think it's true. You hear that if you post photos of what you want to be taking pictures of, then obviously you're going to attract clients that are looking for that. But also, even in your personal life, if you're posting photos that are truly things that you like and enjoy, odds are someone that looks at that and is like, oh, wow, I love my dog too. And I love these, these beautiful sunsets and things like that. If they like your work in general, you're most likely going to get along better with them than, someone who you don't have anything in common with.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some goals that you have for 2024?
That's a tough one. I've been trying to think about it. I didn't know if I wanted to set a number like I did last year. I do have some gigs already booked for this year. So I haven't, I think my personal goal is just to get more second gigs as opposed to assisting. I have no problem assisting. I'll definitely take a bulk of assisting jobs this year. But just trying to break into this industry, the more I can be behind a camera, I think the happier I would be. So if I can increase that number in any sort of way, that's what I'm going for, is just getting more second gigs.
And have you let all of the photographers that you've assisted, do they know that it is something that you're aspiring to do more second shooting?
Yeah, for sure. We always, every time we meet up, we always talk about what's going on, what our plans are, what, the next year is looking like. A lot of them have me rebooked for assisting. So, there's only so many things you can talk about at dinner before you start getting personal. So, yeah, most of them are aware. A couple of them have hired me for those kind of things. Some of them, my style is very different from theirs, and I'm not a fit for a second for them, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm happy assisting, doing what they need to do, just because they're friends at this point. So if I can help out in any way, that's great. But for people that have a similar style to me and want to work with me, like, those are the ideal situations that I'm striving for.
What is your ideal style for a wedding that you're shooting? Like, your shooting style?
Definitely like more documentary, very soft light. I really enjoy. I'm not personally not a fan of like the super contrasty off-camera flash. I think it's just been done so much. I know it's a lot of people don't want to hear that, and I understand they gain a lot of clients and they're well worth their money. And there's plenty of people that like that style, and that's more power to them by all means. For me personally, that's just not what I like. So I don't want to be. To me, like, if I'm shooting weddings in a style that I don't like, that is just like work for me at that point. So I'd rather be doing what I like and kind of being more creative with it when I can.
So it's safe to say that you are not into the on-camera flash trend that's going on right now? The direct on-camera flash?
I like on-camera flash if it's done in a way that looks nice, which I know is a broad term, but you're talking about the where you go like a super slow shutter speed, you take the picture and you like twist it or spin it around. Is that what you're talking about?
No, not the slow shutter speed.
Okay.
It's trending. Like, so much of us have spent so many years like trying to get really good at like off camera flash and directional light. So you've got like dimension. Mm-hmm. And now what's trending is sort of, if you imagine like the disposable cameras with the flashes.
Oh, okay. So
just like no ambient light in the background. So like the dark background and then just like the blast. So it's like, it just feels more candid. Like a guest took it.
Yeah. I know it's wrong, but I like that. I don't know. It has kind of a feeling to it. It gives me almost like paparazzi vibes, which, like, a lot of those people, they want to feel like a celebrity on their day. So why not make them look like a celebrity? And I know like the whole disposable film thing is a huge trend currently. I don't see that necessarily ever dying out. Maybe disposable, but film will always be around. People want that kind of film look. And I feel like that big pop of flash is kind of has more of that look sometimes. So I like on camera flash specifically for that. Actually, is like I like hitting them with that flash and giving that really bright kind of looked like it was on a disposable kind of look. I like that.
So you do like, okay.
I like on camera. It's off camera. Like there's plenty of times where off camera is great. I like it soft. I don't like the super contrasty off camera stuff that a lot of people do.
Like harsh shadows? Or is it just like the directional light?
Little bit of both, I think.
Okay.
It seems like it's pretty stagnant. I can always I can tell when I look at a photo, like I know exactly how they did this. It's very similar to how a lot of people did it. I'm weird, and my styles change daily. It feels like one day I'll love that vintage film look, and then the next day I absolutely hate it, and I want everything to be super clean Vogue style, and I don't know. Every day it does change, but I've recently kind of found a nice middle ground between them where like there is benefits to using off-camera flash, and I use it, all the time. It is great. There's just, I think, in a time and a place and a look for it. And I don't think it doesn't need to be the end all be all. I've worked with a lot of people where every shot's an off-camera flash, no matter what it is, where it's at, what's going on. There's always an off-camera flash, and I just, there's shots where I think would look better if you didn't do it. Like, I know like this past year we had that like crazy, the fires, the whole sky turned to orange and the smoke and everything. In the middle of that happening, I'd booked to assist for someone for an engagement shoot. And, he's a great guy, but it was all off camera flash the entire time. And like, it pained me sitting there with this, the world is a giant softbox currently. And you're getting rid of all of it with this off camera flash. Like, why? I get it. It's his style, but it pained me a little bit to see that happen.
I agree. Yeah, I think sometimes people get so used to doing things that it just becomes formulaic. So it's like that's what they do. But yeah, I agree with you that because that was crazy light that we had. That was just orange and painful to breathe at times.
Yes.
What about the motion blur trend? So not the shutter drag, but just the motion blur. So the slow shutter speed.
Oh, it's not that I don't enjoy them. I think I think you realistically, you need both. I get it's the trend now. I don't think I'm one of those people where I feel like in, 20 years when I go to look at my wedding book and if half of them are blurry or out of focus or like, I'm going to be like, why did I pay thousands of dollars for someone to take blurry photos? So I think realistically you need both. I would go with the safe one before that one, but before the trendy kind of style one. So if you can do both, I would definitely go for both. It's fine. It's not my thing. I get it. Some out of focus things are kind of nice. They can add a little bit of character and a little bit of more storytelling with, the fast movement and stuff like that. But I don't know. I like the pixel peep, so I need my photos to be as crisp and clear as possible.
All right. Now, in addition to going to weddings and assisting and second shooting, are there other ways that you educate yourself? How are you like continuing education? Are there YouTube people that you like to follow, courses that you're doing, anything like that?
Ooh, it's kind of a flavor of the week, really. I religiously watch YouTube videos. During my day job, there's always a second screen with some sort of YouTube video going on. It's not always photo related. But when it is, like Peter McKinnon, I think a lot of his stuff is great. Maybe not so educational, but just, the stuff that he does, I think is really fascinating. I'm trying to think of who else I've religiously been watching. I don't know. A lot of times a thought will pop into my head and I'll just search it and watch the first, 6 videos and see how everyone attacks every scenario. I'm really fascinated with like studio work because some of those shots I think are so cool. So I've been doing a lot of that recently, just trying to figure out how people do their studio stuff. There's a guy that I watch all the time. Oh, Peter Coulson. He's out of Australia. He does a lot of like, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. A lot of like model work per se. He has a really big studio down in Australia, but he's very educational. And look, I can use one light and I can make great photos. Like there's more to it than just the gear aspect. And he kind of has the whole world at his fingertips, more or less. And he's great with working with his models because they're obviously in very, uncomfortable positions to begin with, and learning how, you can communicate better and get those kind of emotions that you're looking for has been beneficial. So that's kind of my current thing is just, how studios do studio things. 'Cause that's a whole different ball game. And I love to shoot everything. So
yeah. Speaking of models and things like that, what has your experience been, or what are your thoughts and feelings on posing couples on the wedding day?
Personally, I would say that's my weak spot. Getting out of that comfort zone of like, again, bossing people around as friendly as possible. Half of them want to listen and the half of them don't. And it's like herding cats, as I'm sure you're aware. I think it's necessary. You do have to get those safe shots of the posing. I mean, it is what it is. I've started to create a album on my phone of just photos I've come across and I'm like, oh, I like how these are posed. And I'll use those as inspiration on the day of. that's benefited me massively, I think, because once you're there and there's 1,000 things going on, trying to remember that one pose you saw on Instagram a week ago, it's just not possible. So yeah, I've created an album. It's wedding poses. I have it split between like brides and grooms and couples, just because they're all very, very different.
I have the same thing on my phone.
Yeah.
I have like a folder in
so
Instagram too, because you go through it and you're like, oh, that makes total sense. And that's so natural. And then when you have the couple there, it's like you do 2 poses and you're like, well, that's the only thing you can do with the human body. There's nothing else you can live. Like it just falls out of your brain.
It does. And especially like, again, with that kind of documentary style stuff where like you need to pose them, but not make it look like it's posed. It gets even harder because it can't just be the same 6 things that, most people are doing. It's got to be a little bit weird and different. So yeah, that's been a lifesaver a couple of times now.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, when you're second shooting, you've never met the couple. So if you're the lead photographer, you've been talking to these people, you may have already done an engagement shoot with them. So you've got that. But as a second shooter, most times it's the first time you're meeting them. And then you're trying to be like, you don't know how affectionate they like to be. So you don't know, what they're comfortable doing. And so it's a matter of kind of quickly gauging what their comfort level is and what they're looking for. Like I've had some people that they want like a ton of different poses and all of that. And other people are like, let's just get through this part as quick as possible. So it's definitely, I think, a challenge for most people. Something else I've been doing too, probably more so with the women, when I first meet them, I will ask them, hey, do you mind if I adjust your hair or anything? And they almost always say like, oh no, please do. But I found myself before like going to reach to like brush a bride's hair. And I'm like, I've never met this person and I would never like with a stranger touch them. So I have found that that's good because it just gives them sort of a heads up. And they're normally appreciative, but little things like that, just not putting your hands on people that you've never met before without giving them any heads up. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want anyone out there to know, whether it's advice for people looking to do more second shooting, assisting, or things you want to tell lead photographers that they should or shouldn't be doing?
Not that I can really think of. It's mostly just the basic stuff. Again, showing up on time is great. Having a lead that communicates well is great. Those are kind of the 2 key things. I think if you have both of those down, if you're there and you're present, that's really all that genuinely matters at the end of the day. It's not that difficult. It's really surprising how easy it is to, do a lot of this stuff. There are long days, don't get me wrong. And, again, every wedding is very different and interesting, whether they're good or bad. But it's daunting. It's definitely daunting getting into that industry, being, you're a part of someone's very important day. And if you mess it up, you really mess it up. So like the stress I get is there, but like, after the third or second one, it's been easy breezy ever since. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know what's going on. It's not nearly as scary as I thought it would be. And like I said, everyone's been way more helpful and communicative and friendly than I thought they would be. So that's been really eye opening as well. Just getting out there and getting every job you can. Yeah.
Well, again, I think it is amazing that you had 52 paying photography gigs in 2023 in only a span of 330 days. So not even a full year. It was 11 months. So it was crazy impressive. And I have a few weddings this year. Hopefully you'll be able to second shoot with me at some point.
I'd love to.
You were a great assistant last year.
Thank you. Yeah, I loved working with you. You were really great. It was one of those things where, again, that stress, because I think you were probably maybe the 3rd or 4th person that ever booked me. And I know you had booked me as a second, but mostly just there to assist. And I realized like I had taken so many photos that day and totally forgot that I ever took any photos. And so I think like I took you like 2 weeks or so to send you these photos. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like I blacked out because it was just that initial first stress of doing anything like really got to me. So yeah, I would love to work together again. I feel much more better and confident now. So, hopefully that side of things are a little bit better, but yeah, for sure.
And no, you were great. And the couple liked you. And that's like the biggest thing. And you were helpful to me and you were asking, what can I do? And you were always right there and you were paying attention and you were kind and all of those things that just go such a long way. So, and I agree. It's like, you get out there, the first couple times it is a little bit awkward and you're figuring things out, but I didn't think you were awkward. So,
well, thank you.
And where can people find you? Where do you like to send people? Is it Instagram that you like to send people to? Instagram's
the only one I really use. I don't use much social media. I use it to follow up on things, but yeah, but Instagram's probably the best. It's just at the Skyler Fiel currently.
Right.
All my stuff is currently on there.
I'll put that in the show notes as well so people know where to find you. And you live in Westchester, just like me. So that's good. Cool. Well, thank you again. I'm going to let you go and have a nice night. And I want
to having me.
Stay in the loop on your wedding too.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun for sure. So we're getting married up in like the Catskill Mountains up in Woodstock, New York. So we had got a really nice Airbnb. It was this old artist house. It was an Architectural Digest. So it's just this beautiful property. It'll just be me and my fiance enjoying each other in the day and everything, and not having the stress of weddings because they're a lot.
No wedding chicken.
Nope. No. Thankfully, no.
Awesome. Oh my God. Well, congrats. And you said it's in September, right?
Yeah, September 14th.
Oh, that's my sister's birthday. Well, congratulations, and I can't wait to see the photos. And
thank you.
Thank you again, and have a good night.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So my thanks to Skyler for coming on the podcast and chatting about so many things. And I feel like there was good information there for people just getting into photography, people getting into wedding photography, assisting, second shooting, and hopefully there was some beneficial information out there for lead photographers as well. So thank you again, Skyler. And as I said, I will put his contact info in the show notes. And thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And if you're so inclined, I would love an honest review. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to A Second Helping. Please like and subscribe. Won't let this moment